All right. All right. I will call to order the Plan Commission meeting on November 15th at 6:30. First on the agenda is the approval of minutes from October 18th.
Second.
Moved by Janelle, seconded by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed, nay? All right, that's approved. I do not have any public appearances for non-agenda items. Anything in the agenda we need to move around at all? No, sir. All right, then we can get right to it. And the first three items are all related, and we've got Ned here to speak to this, I believe. And we actually saw this once already, I believe. So why don't you go ahead and walk us through what you got?
Thanks, Aaron.
I think you have some people online too. I don't know.
We have architects and engineers, if needed, to answer any questions. I won't refer to any of the slides at this point, but I can if you all have sort of questions. This is for the development of Lot 3 of the Avalon sort of properties just off of Fish Hatch. This particular one is off of Index Road. We brought it for a pre-application and for a GIP approval in September. This is the SIP application along with CSM and ADR review. The project is substantially similar to what you looked at and approved in September. We did make some minor modifications to the infiltration basins on the south side. I think there'd been a request by Jay that we look into retaining some trees. We were able to do that by breaking the basin up into 3 different portions and changing some levels and increasing the infiltration area at the south. That allowed us to add 3 extra parking spaces and rearrange the dog run to save a few more trees, but substantially the same as what you looked at in September. I believe, Deanna, that you're suggesting that we defer the CSM approval from this evening. It's here for your review so that you're aware of what we're doing. Essentially, it is a single lot that we are replatting as a single lot, which is slightly unusual, but because some of the lot went to Index Road and there have been a substantive number of changes in terms of easements on and off of the property over time, it seemed to make sense to city staff and to us to replat it. But I believe that it's being set up as a condition of the GIP, or rather of the SIP, to have that done by occupancy so that we can finish kind of rearranging things with utilities and neighbors, sort of, et cetera, during the construction process. Otherwise, not a lot to report. We're excited to be doing another project in Fitchburg, construction costs and interest rates allowing.
Do you want to talk about the ADR now, or you want to do the CSM and the rezone first? It doesn't matter to me.
I'm happy to. In general, on the ADR design stuff, we will defer to the architects sort of online or to staff. But essentially, we've tried to tie it in from a design perspective with the Ochala building to the south. It's a similar structure with a lot of sort of masonry, some metallic panels to highlight certain sort of sections. And so the 2 buildings are designed so that they will look like they were designed together, even they've been designed sort of and will be built kind of 12 to 18 months sort of apart, but it's substantially similar to that, kind of a whitish masonry sort of color and a combination of a darker almost black sort of color and an orangey kind of color from a metal panels perspective. They do have metal in the balconies that accentuates sort of the lines, the vertical lines for each of the units in that process.
All right. Do you want to do a staff report, Deanna?
I certainly do. So, as Ned noted, that the proposed SIP and the ADR is consistent with what you have approved as the GIP. Staff and the developers, Ned, have agreed to proceed with the certified survey map, which is presented to you for reference. And this is despite the fact, it's very clear, I want to be very clear that the property boundaries are not changing. Those are all set here. The reason to move forward with the CSM is to address the complexity of some of the easements, which Ned mentioned in this area, and this lot is governed by a consolidated easement agreement that covers this property and the neighboring properties to the west. So the proposed development that you have before you this evening with the SIP and the ADR would be changing some of the internal locations of those access easements. Those access easements are still being worked out. Everything is not finalized yet, which still is keeping with the easement agreement. So I'm comfortable with proceeding with consideration of the SIP and the ADR before all the easements are all sorted out, because they can do all of the work on their property for the construction, and there's not going to be a problem with the easements. But down the road, it's important for the developers to sort out all of these easements. I don't know if I've been totally clear with that. So we are requesting to defer the CSM that you have before you, to continue to go ahead and consider the SIP and the ADR. Staff does recommend approval of the SIP and the ADR. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Then at that point, I don't have anyone else in the public who wants to speak, so I can open up to questions and comments from Planning Commission. Ed?
So Deanna, I'm still a little unclear.
Yep.
Essentially, they could go ahead with the construction, you're saying, without having this new CSM done, because there's no change in the boundaries. So if we were to approve the rezone and the ADR tonight, they could go ahead. Now, they're going to want to come in with the CSM, but we don't need them to do that. Okay.
That is exactly right.
So that's not going to be a contingency of them going forward with the project?
No, the CSM is not, completion and approval of the CSM is not a contingency of the SIP and the ADR.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Do we need to vote to defer this to another time?
We'll do a motion in a minute. I just want to have this discussion first. Yep, that's what.
Ed and Deanne, I'm happy to just explain a tiny bit more. The consolidated easement provides for the ability to change the location of the easement within our property. So the existing easement gives us the legal right to change it, but until it's actually done, it would have to be shown on the new CSM. So you end up trying to clean up the CSM, but you end up with a complicated CSM because you have to show the existing location as well as the new location. So by having it conditional for occupancy, it just gives us the time to do that. But as Deanna said, the existing easement provides our legal rights to change it. So there's no question about it becoming an issue. It's just a question of the timing in order to make it happen.
Okay, thanks.
I think you just answered it, but so it's to your benefit that this is cleared up for occupancy. I mean, otherwise this could go on, and other than planning following up with it. Is that correct?
It's in our interest, yes. Our financiers, for example, would prefer to have a clean CSM for their.
Somebody's going to require
purposes.
it at some point, yes. Okay, very
But
good.
we're happy to have it as a contingency on occupancy so that we have a deadline and the city knows that we have an incentive to get it done by a certain time.
Sure, very good.
Other questions or comments, Ed?
So then, again, following up, Deanna, does that mean when we get to ADR that we do not need condition number 3?
Ooh, I missed that. Well, actually, yes. I mean, that one should stay. It just has to be recorded prior to occupancy.
Oh,
Yeah, because we're saying there's,
we're good with that.
yeah, the occupancy is the key. We want done
Yeah.
before that.
Got it.
So they'll be able to go, if you all so chose to approve, they would be able to proceed with the building permits, but then prior to occupancy, we would need to have the CSM come back to you for approval and then recording.
Is there, there's no reason to be concerned that there would be a problem with getting everything done for the CSM. We wouldn't have a building that's put up that we can't grant occupancy to because somehow the CSM can't get done. I mean, are we certain that those issues can be resolved between now and then?
The building can be built. What is happening is it's more of a longer-term good planning process. If the CSM wasn't ever recorded, the building will still be legal. Because they're only changing the access easement within their property.
So we could, at that time, occupancy could be approved, but we would have to act to remove this condition from the prior approval.
You
Okay.
would have to, yeah.
Okay,
But I think it's in the interests of the neighboring property owner. I think it is in the interest of the developer to go ahead and
yeah.
work this out and make sure everything is sorted out properly.
Okay.
Deanna, we'll postpone the CSM eventually here. Do you want to postpone it till next month, till January, till any time in particular?
I don't know if we could set a date on that.
If we postpone to, say, February, we'll be able to let you know in advance whether we need to simply postpone again, but, you know,
Okay.
that's probably reasonable.
We'd have to act to postpone again, right? So if we
Yes, you
postpone
would
till a
have to.
later date, he could bring it in sooner. Could he not, or not?
I'm not sure about that.
Pardon?
I guess it depends on what's in the motion.
That's,
I think,
Do we have to defer to us or postpone to a specific date?
well, I don't know that I don't know that we
Typically
need
do,
to
but I don't
postpone it. I think we'll just defer.
We're tabling it then?
Yes.
well, so postpone and table, the reason you say postpone is that postpone and table, so we're going to get into the weeds with Robert's Rules of Order here. By postponing it, you can actually have discussion beforehand. If you table it, you're not supposed to have discussion. You're supposed to just table it and move on. That's why you postpone. So it means the same thing either way. And you can postpone, generally you postpone to a specific date. You could probably postpone till the CSM's ready from applicant, I suppose.
Yeah, until the applicant brings it back.
Yeah, I guess. Why not?
Well, I mean, if we just have to bring it back, we'll just
I mean,
bring it
it's
back.
going to take 2 seconds to postpone it again if we have
Yeah.
to. Yeah,
It would.
as long as February's not too late.
Is that too quick? Then let's postpone the
February?
CSM till February, and then we can just reevaluate in February.
And February's likely going to, you're not going to need it earlier than February.
We would not.
Okay.
I wish we could have a building ready for occupancy by February. That would be something to see.
Other questions or comments about the project in general, really? Whether it's the CSM, rezone, any ADR, well, we can get to those later, I guess, but any other questions at all? All right, then does someone want to postpone the CSM? Motion to postpone. Randy, go ahead.
Sure. Motion to postpone certified survey CS-2482-22
To February.
to February of 2023.
I'll second.
Seconded by Rich. All in favor of postponing, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right, that is postponed. And then I will open the public hearing officially for the rezone request. I do not have anyone to speak on the rezone request, so I can close the public hearing. Any other questions or comments on the rezone request at all? Or a motion?
I'll move approval of rezone 2481-22 with the 6 conditions as noted by staff.
Second.
Seconded by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. All right, that's approved. And then ADR, any further questions, comments at all on that? motion?
Move approval of ADR for Avalon with the 15 conditions as noted.
Second.
Sent by Randy. All in favor of approving, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, nay? All right, that is also approved. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
All right, next up, we've got the preliminary plat request for the next phase of Terravessa. And I know we've got Phil online. Phil, do you want to tell us what's going on here? You're on mute, though. Okay.
Wanted to bring the next phase ahead. We're just finished the second edition. There's a significant interest still in lots and people wanting to live in Terravessa. So as always, we need to plan ahead, hopefully to start construction next spring on a final plat that we'll bring in next month. Everything, I think the engineers have responded to Deanna's comments and Public Works comments. I really don't have much else to add unless there's any questions.
Deanne, do you want to do a staff report?
I certainly do. So this is actually the second revision of the Terravessa preliminary plat. So this is a revision of a preliminary plat that has been previously approved. It appears to me that they are reducing the numbers of lots and creating a larger number of single-family residential lots. Otherwise, the preliminary plat is very similar to what has been approved before. We do have some of my notes in the memo was reflective of the comments that the planning staff had regarding smart code. This is smart code. So we reviewed this in particular in conformance with the lot dimensions with smart code. We recognize that there will need to be an updated Article 3 submitted, and the Article 3 will have updates in terms of the locations and numbers and amount of T4 versus T3 lots. The parkland dedication is similar to what was previously approved. So staff does recommend approval of the preliminary plat with 11 conditions.
All right, I can open up to questions or comments. I just had one question right away, Phil. Do you miss all the snow that's been falling all day long?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. But I think in general, I'm just happy to see the next phase go forward. I know it's been a really popular neighborhood. It's a beautiful neighborhood, very popular, and we need lots of great lots of great lots in neighborhoods like this. So excited to see that it's continuing to go forward very rapidly.
Thanks, Aaron. It really has been gratifying, frankly, and I don't know if you saw, but one of the latest homes built by Tim O'Brien is actually a net zero energy home as well. So there's been a lot of interest in solar panels. There's been a lot of interest in people looking at different ways of conserving energy. And of course, as you all know, that school is a net zero energy school as well. So we've been very lucky as we've gone along, but we'll hopefully see you'll be seeing some retail occupied out there by the spring along Lacey Road. So we're excited about that. Places for people to be able to go without jumping in the car. So all in all, it's been pretty gratifying, the whole thing.
I know there's a lot of kids that live in the neighborhood that go to school there, and I know at least one teacher built a house in the neighborhood as well.
Oh. Walk to school,
Yep.
walk to work.
Yep. Good.
Phil, what's happening in the market, or what is the kind of the thought behind reducing the number of lots and going with larger lots?
Well, some of the lots in the original preliminary plat were very narrow, 20-foot wide. I think our designer got a little ambitious with trying to create probably more density than realistically could happen. I think overall he did a great job, and there's obviously a lot of green space and everything else, but We also always have to respond to the marketplace. There is a significant demand for single-family homes. I know that builders will continue building condos in 2-unit condos, 3-unit condos. But and even in the second edition, which just was approved, there's at least 4 buildings in there that will have attached housing. And I think we're going to see more of that as we move along.
Thanks.
Yep.
Other questions or comments at all?
Another question for Deanna. You noted it in the staff report that changing some of the lots will increase unmatched transects. That it's been a long while since we really went through smart code, and that one went over my head. Do you want to?
That's a smart code thing, and what smart code likes to have is the same T-zone facing each other. So it likes to have T4 and T4 on both sides of the street. And so when we have a T3 and a T4, they're not matching up. So.
No, that just if I could expand on that, that our T3 lots typically are the ones that have the front loading garages. The T4 lots typically had the rear loaded garages. We do have some instances, even though in the original plat, that have T4 across the street from T3 on the bottom or the south end of Endive. So it's it really just kind of goes unnoticed after a while. I think as you drive through there, if any of you have taken any time, the streetscape and what you see is pretty important part of smart code. Having homes that are not set back so far from the street, that have attractive frontage, but then the garage being the most unattractive part of building typically is the garages are in the back. But I think it's blended in very nicely with both of the T4 and T3.
Yeah, I'll echo that, Phil. It isn't that it can't work. It's just I need to follow the code. That's all.
So
There are some things in smart code, if you decide to maintain it over the next decades, probably ought to have some more tweaks to it.
I would certainly take your advice there. Yes.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how you would actually even make that transition, because if you're T4 and you've got the alley served, how do you do the ones across the street the same? Once you built the alley, then the next street over might as well be alley served too. So how can you ever actually make logically that transition?
Parks.
Maybe that's one of the things that, parks.
There's an allowable percentage of unmatched transects in smart code. It's just, we have to keep track of it.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thanks.
Other
You're
questions?
using me, Dina.
Other questions or comments at all? Or a motion, Randy?
A motion to approve preliminary plat request PP-2480-22 with the 11, I think it's 11, correct? 11 conditions? Noted by staff.
All right, seconded by Rich.
I'll second.
Oh, all right. All in favor, say aye.
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 And anyone opposed, nay? That is approved. Thank you, Phil.
Thanks very much.
All right, on to E, the resolution here. Do you want to speak to this? Do you want me to speak to this? Do you want to start?
You might know more than I, but I will start. So resolution R-212-22 is a resolution to authorize the city attorney to petition Dane County Circuit Court to vacate parkland dedication of Lot 20 in the second edition of Fitchburg Research Park, which would be the corner just next door. The city previously approved the final plat of second edition to Fitchburg Research Park, which included lands designated as Lot 20, which were identified to be dedicated to the public for park purposes. None of said lot 20 has ever been developed or used as a city park or playground, and the city of Fitchburg has no plans for improving lot 20 as a public park or playground. In 2014, a space needs assessment, analysis, and project building program study identified the need for the city for a standalone police facility, which would mitigate the need for City Hall and community senior center expansion via abandoned space remodeling. A police facility has been proposed to be constructed on Lot 20. In order to do so, the city needs to vacate Lot 20 as parkland, and this resolution declares that it is in the public interest that the city petition the Circuit Court for Dane County to vacate the dedication of Lot 20 for public park purposes, and authorizes the city attorney to file in Dane County Circuit Court for a vacation of Lot 20 and to take other action as needed. There you have it.
So I can speak to this a little bit more. So what it comes down to is City Hall is full. You know, we're adding about 10 new staff positions next year, and we don't really have enough room for everyone. We're going to fit everyone, but it's pretty tight. The police department continues to grow and has significant space needs. If you've been downstairs, you know that it's not a very well laid out police department. They need a lot more space. They need more room for evidence, and just there's a lot of needs that we have as a city. And so looking at how we can do that, it's been determined that building a standalone police facility is the best way to not only give the police department the space they need, but also to increase the capacity for staff here at City Hall as well. We're a growing city. We're going to continue to be growing and growing staff as well. We're looking at the options. A standalone facility just right across the street is the best option, we feel, for a number of reasons. One, we own the land, so that reduces the cost. And two, it does help to have all the city services in one campus. You know, some people might say it should go here or there, but the reality is that when an officer is on duty, their car is their office, and so we don't necessarily need a police department facility in northern Fitchburg or somewhere in western Fitchburg or eastern Fitchburg. It's great to have it right here, have everything in one spot. There, you know, at one point the consideration was also, do you just expand City Hall? But the reality is that we can do that once. We have enough room to really make one addition onto City Hall. If we did that for the police department, it's not saving any cost. The cost per square foot is still the same, really. And now you've built a police facility on City Hall, and you have nowhere else to expand. So then what happens when you need more space? Do you then build another standalone police department building at that point in time? How does that work? And so by doing it this way, you would also hopefully build the new police department facility so that there's some expansion that you can do pretty cheaply. You know, do it so that there's spaces that can easily be expanded and added onto if possible. In 20, 30 years, we're going to need more space eventually, but it then enables here at City Hall, as we continue to grow, that we probably will need an expansion at some point in time, but we can expand it to have a bigger planning and zoning department, for example. And so this is just something that we have to do formally because the land across the street was designated as park space. We do have to go to Circuit Court to get approval to actually use it and not for park space for other city services. There's nothing really planned over there, but I would expect that part of the building of the facility would be to make the area around it nice as well. And so it would be a way to improve that land over there a little bit anyway. And so that's what we're trying to do, is just figure out the long term, what makes the most sense for the city for the next 20 or 30 years down the road. So, Randy?
Just a clarification. The sketch that's provided is not Lot 20, is it? It looks more like closer to Fahey Fields.
Yes, we apologize. On the memo, that is not the correct location.
Okay, just
That is our error. I missed that one. But here we go. Just to be clear, I do have the handy dandy little map.
On the other side of Research Park, essentially, from,
So
there you go.
there's the property. That is lot 20.
And it's not the entire lot that we're using. We're just using a very small part along Research Park Drive. That's a big, it's like an oak savanna right now, essentially, with a stream going through it. Well, I don't know if it's a stream as much as water runoff, but sometimes it's a raging river. Other questions on this? Rich?
Why wasn't it ever developed into Parkland? Was that part of the building when this facility was built, that was included, and the city had to dedicate certain areas to Parkland, like we require all our developers and?
So the city wouldn't have to devote any parkland. Promega is probably where it came from. It's part of the Promega properties, but it was something that it was because of topography. I guess I don't know exactly why, but I would guess because of topography, because of location, it's not like a great spot for a baseball field or a soccer field, for example. It was always, I think, seen as some kind of a passive thing. It's something where, long term, we could look at putting paths through it or something like that. But at this point in time, we haven't put the resources towards it. I mean, it all costs money.
So it was not our responsibility to develop a park there. It was from prior commitments or setups, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because my first thought was that anybody that built houses across the street, across Fish Hatch, before I looked at the maps and figured out where this was, I was thinking, oh, wait a minute, are they expecting a park to be in their backyard? And then I was against it in that sense, but this has been this way since forever.
Yeah.
So,
long time. Yeah. Across Fish Hatch Road would be.
I did have a big problem with this morning and last week, but I'm okay.
Ed, you have a question?
Yeah, I guess kind of along those same lines. So essentially, this was someone's required parkland dedication at some time. It was not?
So of course I was not here,
Right.
but I went through
I
all
don't remember.
all the files. I went through all the files that we have, and I could not attach this to a particular set of housing units. I do not believe that this was dedicated as a requirement for parkland dedication.
My guess is that Promega just gave it to the city because it's just not great for development.
With the water running through there,
Right.
it's limited.
For any big development, anyway. Yeah. I mean, there's enough room to put the police facility kind of along Research Park, but it's not like they're going to put, you see the buildings they build, something that big isn't going to fit. We're not doing a police department facility that big.
Yeah. But this is what the courts look at, though. I mean, they're trying to make a determination as to whether a city is requiring parkland dedication, then turning around and converting the property to its own purposes.
Maybe.
The parkland dedication piece really lives in the files, in city files. Once it's dedicated to parkland, then where it lives actually legally is in the subdivision improvement agreement, and that is the recorded agreement. That agreement with each developer lays out the amount of parkland dedication and the fees they are to pay. So what I did was go back and look at all of the related housing development to this particular plat, which there really wasn't, and none of the subdivision improvement agreements referred back to this as a parkland dedication for particular housing units. So does that make sense of kind of how that works?
And I believe,
Big way, yeah.
Sorry.
and I think, when parkland's dedicated as part of a housing development, they donate the land and maybe fee in lieu of, but also parkland improvement money.
Yes, they do.
And we have an account for those, and I don't know that there's a parkland improvement fund for this piece of land, which tells me that it wasn't part of any kind of development. It was probably just gifted to us as
an
a
orphan.
city. So,
Basically an orphan, right?
yeah, kind of.
Well, I mean, it probably was thinking at the time, long-term, this could be like, a parkland and related to the overall campus. which it still can be. This is the city campus, and the bulk of it is probably going to still end up being parkland.
So as we take a look at the map, if I'm not mistaken, there are tenants that exist in the section that is above where we're currently marked. So really what we're requesting is that entire parcel that is ours as part of this legal request.
I think just,
These are different private properties. And so what this process is, this parcel is owned by the city. And so what this process is to go to Dane County Court to say, can we remove the parkland dedication?
but we're not removing the entire parcel of parkland.
I don't know that we've actually had too much of a discussion if we would just remove part of it.
We're not going to use the whole spot for the police facility. I
mean,
can tell you that. It's a small portion.
Yeah. I think the assumption would be, as you have stated, that the bulk of it would just remain undeveloped parkland.
Randy?
I think if anyone looks at Google Maps, and you're going to see the wooded area, triangle portion, and if you've driven by that, I don't know of, I don't think we certainly would want to develop that piece in there. It's pretty, the top, there's quite a bit of what I'm going to say, a ravine or gully or whatever, and that's where you're probably referencing what the water runs through. So, and if I'm not mistaken, that's what you're referencing as future parkland.
I mean, it is now and will continue to be.
Right, but I mean, that's not where the police department, you're speaking of the police department closer to the intersection of Lacey and Research.
Right on Research Park, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think essentially kind of where the library and City Hall are, right
Yeah.
across the street from that.
Correct.
So our ask as we go forward is going to give us sufficient latitude should any plans change for the police station, given maybe some unknowns as we incorporate the town of Madison, that our legal ask is going to give us some flexibility there for that and then some?
Yeah, we'll have plenty to do. We'll have the ability to do whatever it is we need to do. I mean, if the police department comes and says they need a 250,000 square foot building, then we're going to tell them to cut back a little bit on that. But, but yeah, everything that they need to do at this point in time.
Contrary to popular belief, I'm not very familiar with the inside of the police station.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Here's market research.
I use that excuse.
Not the current one, anyhow.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Or a resolution or a motion? I mean. Randy? All right.
All right, motion to approve resolution R-212-22.
Second.
Additions?
Sent by Janelle. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that's approved. Thank you. Deanna, any report? from the
The
department?
department does not have any report this evening, other than we do have Plan Commission next month on the 20th.
Any announcements at all? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Moved by Janelle. Seconded by Randy. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Nay. All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.